to talk about the intersection of my spiritual awakening and my healing journey. What I did was I kind of used the tools and resources that I learned were available to me through my spiritual awakening to facilitate the things that I needed to work on. Nobody heals you but you ever. The only thing a therapist or, a metaphysical healer does is essentially create a space of healing for you. And then once you come into that space, your belief and your willingness to do the work is actually what facilitates the healing for you. While do consider myself an intuitive, and I do have really strong psychic abilities and whatnot, I do believe that every single person on this planet, whether they believe it or are aware of it or not, has the same abilities that I have. I just have decided, my soul plan for this life was for me to have awareness of my connection to source and to use it with intention. So I want to go into like how I used my spiritual connection to just kind of facilitate my own healing.
It feels a lot like your soul is very peaceful. It's come here to experience a lot of peace. You're supposed to find peace even in the chaos. There are mirroring things in this life from that past life that you've come to heal with this person.
You're strong. I mean, you can even, pull yourself up without even having your feet touch anything.
I find that even in your current life right now, it's still important for you to use your voice.
What I'm getting is that you want a love that you can contribute to. You're asking for platinum, so you can't accept the copper when it shows up, even though it's pretty too.
You are being pushed outside your comfort zone to seek new heights.
And you are true to yourself and you're true to others around you as you live your authentic life. You are just you, and that is all you need to open up. We need you to speak your truth, Katrina.
All right, so I want to talk about bridging the way that I used my spiritual gifts, the way I use spirituality to help me facilitate healing. So I do believe everybody has, a connection to source, whatever you want to call that, whatever religion, however you frame that, it's totally fine. It's like, I feel like having that awareness that we're not alone, in our human experience, and that we have the ability to be guided if we so choose to, lean into that. And whether we call it Jesus or Jehovah or whatever, that's totally fine. I'm an omnist. I believe every path leads to God, and I don't think that you have to subscribe to one way of being. What makes something real is your belief, right? So if you've been here a while, I had a spiritual awakening in 2020 when my grandmother passed away. I was driving on my way over to her house because my sister had called me and told me that she was, dying. And on the way down there, once I got toward the base of the mountain, I felt her energy in the car. And 3 to 5 minutes later, once I got, within cell phone area, reception area, my sister called me and told me that she'd passed away. So after that, she passed away September of 2020. It wasn't until November of 2020. It was the day before my birthday. I got a psychic reading. And I was very, 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 very fucking skeptical about this. I felt like an idiot. I felt like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, calling a psychic? Like, come on. What do you know? Pre-spiritual awakening Trina and current Trina would probably... Pre-spiritual awakening Trina would just kind of laugh at who I am today. But, if you have been through a spiritual awakening, you'll understand that there are so many experiences that end up happening that bring you to a sense of knowing that no one can move you from, right? And by having that particular kind of cadence of experience and having that awareness that I never would have believed this had I not gone through these experiences myself, I don't expect you, if you haven't had those experiences, to feel this in the same way that somebody who has had experiences like this will feel these things, right? So in the reading with my grandmother, not only did I connect with my grandmother, and she basically talked about a bunch of shit that I was doing that that I didn't tell anybody about. She was watching me with my then partner. And she talked about just a bunch of stuff, right? A bunch of stuff that was nail on the head, couldn't have applied to anyone else. It was very specific toward my grandmother's and mine's connection. During that reading, I also asked other questions because in preparing for the psychic reading, I had watched the reader's YouTube channel, and she was like, that we all have guides and angels that we pick before we come into life, and we choose these spirits to guide us and be there with us. And so I asked in that reading if I had guides and angels and whatnot, and she was like, yes, and she told me what they helped me with and how I could connect with them, right? So long and the short of it is, everybody, whether you're aware of it or not, has a team of guides and angels around us, and sometimes they swap out. A lot of us too that incarnate at the same time, a lot of us will have the same guides and angels because we come in soul groups, and we've all been, we've incarnated with each other, through eons. We're eternal beings, right? So some of us will even have like the same team. Our teams actually work together with us to align us with people who we think will be of service. It's this whole, how we're here on Earth and we feel like, oh, we're so alone and we have to handle all this by ourselves. We're never, never, ever alone. A really good movie, by the way, side note, that kind of shows this is called The Magician's Elephant on Netflix. Gorgeous little cartoon. I love cartoons. I love kid movies. That talks about how it really goes to show, there's even a scene where the guardian angel freezes everything, and she talks about how we think things are impossible, but how often do we do things that are impossible? If we look around every day, there are things that we have come up with that at some point somebody believed couldn't be, right? Started in someone's mind, they made it into reality, and now something that was just a concept in someone's mind is in the physical plane, and we all just, it's fine, right? We all have these fucking cell phones that talk to each other wirelessly and stuff that 100 years ago we would have been like, what the fuck, right? So I digress. So I start connecting with these guides and angels. They tell me in this reading, they're like, lean on us, ask us for help, let us show up for you, test us, right? Test us, see what we can do. Just even if you don't believe it, just feel into it and test us. And I had all these damn experiences. Tangible experiences where I would have trouble at work and I'd be like, all right, y'all, I need help with this. Can you guys help me out? Because I don't know what the fuck to do. And then a solution would magically appear. And when I say magically, what I just mean is out of nowhere, right? I don't mean cartoon magically, even though it's kind of the same thing. So one of the first things I started asking my guides and angels about was, why the fuck did I make me? Because I have learned that I am so unique and such a weird combination of things that it's made me feel really lonely throughout my life. It makes it really hard to connect with people. It feels like where people will have one or two things going on within them, and then I just have a million, and I see things and feel things, at a very different level. I can feel stuff that just doesn't make any sense. I was hanging out one time at this car event thing, and one of the cars revved, and I swear I could feel the whole engine inside my body. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. The point is, I asked my guides and angels, I was like, why did I make me like this, right? So they led me to podcasts. So when you ask your guides and angels and stuff, they don't just answer you the words, boom. It's I'm driving in my car on the way home from the gym, and I'm like, why did I make me this weird mixed country music, rap loving, snowboarding, rock climbing? Why do I have all these different parts, right? Why am I like this? And so I end up picking up my phone, and I randomly find this podcast called De Luna, something like that. The De Luna podcast, I think it's called, but it's about human design. And so I'm listening to these women talk about human design, and I find out that I'm a manifesting generator, and that we're here to try things out. We provide the life force energy of the planet. We're here to do things. We're not the type of people that we're not just going to get the job, and we're not just going to stay at the job for 50 years. We're not here to just do or be one thing. We're here to do and be a lot of different things, right? So it wasn't just human design, though. They also put me up on, really, you going to be in the podcast too, Monty? They also put me up on natal charts. So looking at your astrological imprint when you come in, Astrology is not just about sun signs, it's way deeper than that. So I read my natal chart. I looked into hologenetic keys. So all this stuff is coming to me randomly, meaning that like I'll open up my phone and just this podcast is there. Everyone's like worried about the algorithm. Like, how'd they get in your algorithm? Algorithm. Da, 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 da. I firmly believe that spirit can control our algorithm. There was times when they were answering questions for me so just in rapid succession. I remember watching something on YouTube. I think it was an Abraham Hicks video. When it got to the end of the video, I was like, all right, you guys, what do you guys have for me next? Literally, I'm saying this to my guides and angels. And we just talked to them. I just talked to them, you guys. Like, I talk to regular people. And sometimes it's like I can feel the response, and sometimes it'll like appear into my reality. So after the Abraham Hicks video wraps up, it's like a Joe Dispenza fucking video, and it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I look and I'm like, are y'all serious? 2 hours and 10 minutes? I was like, I'm gonna watch this for 10 minutes, and if it doesn't resonate, I'm telling my guides and angels, if it doesn't resonate, like, I'm changing it. And I watched the whole fucking 2 hours and 10 minutes because everything that he talked about was like specific answers to my questions. So like, instead of going to like a therapist, and I have nothing against therapists can be absolutely amazing, but like the study of being a therapist is like, okay, we study the model of life, right? We study the human brain, we study causation and reaction, we study like all this stuff, right? And then we come up with everybody functions like this, and this is how you address everything, right? Which is cool if you have a therapist that isn't intuitive and that can kind of, or if you're very self-aware and you can really come and, state what your needs are. But a lot of it for me, I found therapy is a lot of fishing. I remember before my spiritual awakening, I was seeing this therapist, and she was way more love and light and spiritual than I was. And I remember she was telling me that my daughter, that I should like, oh, when she behaves that way, you should like hold her and sit her next to you and just bathe her in your love and light. And I was like, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? Like, I thought that bitch was so kooky. And I say bitch respectfully. I thought that woman was so kooky, and it just didn't resonate with me. It wasn't what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it. Now, if somebody said that to me now, I'd be like, oh, I get it. Right? But like, then, like, if you don't have the right framework, then you're not going to be able to apply the new information, right? We have to build upon things. So as I'm building upon this knowledge of self, I'm coming to this deep level of just respect for myself and understanding that I am not, like the psychology books will tell you, I am not a product of my environment. I was built to go into the environment that I incarnated in, because I incarnated with intention and because I wanted to learn certain things. So another thing that I was pointed to during my healing journey was pre-birth planning. So I started listening to Robert Schwartz books on the life that you planned before you were born. And these books are so amazing. I feel like too, had I read these books prior to receiving my own psychic reading and really understanding how real that shit was, this book wouldn't have meant anything to me, because he does go to readers. He goes to 3 different readers, which I think is really cool. That's like a really, like, if you're, using the scientific method, so to speak, and you're trying to, make sure that your results are consistent. I love the way he formats this book because, he takes a person and he focuses on a particular situation, and then he goes to one reader and he asks probing questions to spirit, like, okay, why did the child come in with autism, for example, right? So the book is really cool because it goes into a bunch of different things that we as humans identify as problems. So one was homosexuality, STDs, one was alcoholism and addiction, drug addiction, children with disabilities. I have my youngest son is on the autism spectrum, so that was really important for me to like hear that. So he goes into all these different areas and he talks about it. And what you end up finding is that all these people who you think were victims, right? Like, maybe we'll just take the child with autism. So, from the human perspective, we're like, oh, the vaccines or the diet or whatever, right? We take these human causations and we apply them to have this blanket meaning of, okay, there's something wrong or abnormal with this child. Pour them, let's give them all the support and try to make them more like us. When in reality, these souls have chosen to come in that way for so many different reasons, you guys. And you can't, like, one thing doesn't fit everybody. Like, in the psych books, it's like, oh, if you experience this trauma, this is going to be like what the outcome, whatever of that is or whatever, right? And it's like so much more unique than that. So in the book, this woman had 2 children who were on the autism spectrum, and both of these kids had had past lives in Nazi Germany. And they basically had decided to come back into this life and experience not being able to communicate, because when they were in Nazi Germany, and I think I'm really bad with details, but um, the genocide or whatever, all the terrible stuff that was happening to the Jews, they were witnessing that. And instead of saying something, they stayed quiet, right? And so in that life, they had the ability to communicate and they chose not to. And so in this life, they don't have the ability to communicate, because in the way their autism showed up, it really limited their ability for communication. Now, to be very clear, this is not a punishment for being a Nazi. This is not a punishment for what they did in that past life. It's purely about balance, because from a soul level, the soul wants to experience and be all things. And so being something that from the human perspective we consider as bad, from the soul perspective, it's expansion. It's becoming more, right? The universe can't grow unless we continue to do things. All of us are on that band of eternity, and eternity, the universe is a circle, everything is a circle. So as we do more things, we're just basically expanding and becoming more. I had a past life reading with my youngest son, and I didn't find out why he incarnated with autism, or having that, whatever. I don't know, that I'm not really great with PC stuff, so if I'm saying this wrong, please don't come for me. But they talked about in the past life that we were both in an Eskimonian tribe, and he was my cousin. I was a male in that life, and I was a hunter, and he was my best pupil. He was such a quick learner, and I believed in his ability to learn. And so in this life, it's funny, once he was diagnosed with autism, I kind of rejected it. I didn't handle it very well, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it meant there was something wrong with me. I thought that there was something wrong with the child that I had. I thought I was maybe too old to be having children. I had no business having kids. Like, it was really, 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 really hard on me having a kid with this affliction, because my other kids were fine. It's interesting, you take for granted your ability for your child to speak to you until you have a child that can't speak, right? And so by way of learning about that past life with him, it was like, oh, that's why. I'm like, fuck that. Because my role in this particular life, now his dad has a different role. His dad is such an amazing dad with it. He does all the special, he takes them to like the autism events, and they do the sports and like all that stuff or whatever, right? But for me, it's my job and my perspective in this life to look at him like he's like everybody else, and to treat him like he is like everybody else, because he does have the ability. Like, I took him to get ice cream one time, and I'm like, instead of like putting the toppings on for him, I handed him the spoon, and made him do that shit himself. And guess what? He fucking did it. He's extremely, extremely capable, but if he can get away with making somebody else do it, he absolutely will. Anyway, I digress. So it also talked about in that book, like, okay, a very, very, very common theme that I have found in my life is independence. It's so important for me to do things on my own in this life. And so, but growing up, I was like, I just thought I had like dog shit parents. My mother had her issues. My dad was just not in my life. I didn't even meet him until I was 24. I grew up with a stepdad, who had his own way of being in my life. And so I remember after reading this book and having this understanding, I'm like, oh, that's why I incarnated and asked my mother to be who she was, because her being and having all the issues that she had in this life gave me the strength that I needed to become who I wanted to grow into being on a soul level. So from the soul level in this life, I never intended to have great parents. I never intended to have a cushy, easy life. I never intended to not experience trauma. I intended the exact opposite. There's another story in the book where this woman is blown up. She's like, there's a pipe bomb or something at her job, and they go into this Akashic Records reading, I believe, and this particular reader had the ability to channel the conversations. And this woman, literally, who we would can look at in this life and we'd consider a victim, literally had to beg the guy who ended up being the bomber to do this to her. She was like, listen, I need you to do this. If you do this for me, then I will be able to create this healing and these learning and these programs and all these opportunities. And so sometimes when we go through, I would even venture to say, I want to say all the time, but it's based on free will, right? Because she came in with the intent of having this accident happen to her, ended up, being a bomb/burn victim, whatever that is, and then starting this organization that did something. I can't remember the details, but she has free will, right? So she could have come in and experienced that and just fallen into just self-pity, self-loathing, maybe like not even been able to emotionally recover from the accident, maybe even ending her life early, committing suicide. There's all kinds of ways that this could have panned out, in her life, but her intentions on a soul level was for her to come here, experience that, and turn it into something beautiful that was impactful for everyone. So this was really, really, really huge for me, because I remember I went and saw my mom, after learning about this, and she carries a lot of guilt about the things that we went through when we were growing up. And I said to her, I was like, Mom, like, you were the perfect mother. You were the perfect mother. You're exactly who I needed you to be, because I could not be this woman had you not been the woman that you are. And it just gave me so much love and respect. Even my biological father, to this day, oh my gosh, he gets so upset. Is like, he carries all this guilt. He's like, I can't, I wasn't there for you. I should have been there, and, all these things. And I'm like, Dad, like, I didn't want a dad to be there for me. As crazy as that fucking sounds, like, I wouldn't have been able to develop into this woman that I am. I don't know that I would have been as a nurturing mother had I not been nurtured, by my mom. Like, all these things that, society would tell us are like bad, or like, they're awful of my story and feel bad for me because I didn't have these basic whatever the fucks, is actually exactly what I needed on a soul level to learn and expand. So that was like absolutely fucking huge. So the key thing when using spirit to help facilitate learning is you have to understand that your soul and your spirit team knows exactly what level you're on. They know exactly what's the next bit of information that you need in order to get to the understanding that you need so that you can level up, right? So it was just absolutely huge. And I think that, like, another thing that I did, oh my goodness, is I decided, once I realized that I was being led everywhere, I was being led to literature, I was being led to readers, I was being led to people were being led to me, experience. I could see the inner workings of all the dynamics between myself and the people that I encountered. I chose to believe everything that was brought to me was brought to me intentionally, and it was gonna work. For example, when I started getting Akashic Records readings from Lorena, she was offering this flower essence therapy. I have no fucking knowledge base on the flower essence therapy thing, but it was being presented to me. So I believed this is being put to me because this can be of benefit to me. In medical studies, they talk about the placebo effect, right? It's your belief more than it is the pill that helps you overcome, heal, facilitate whatever you're trying to facilitate. So I chose to believe that those flower essence concoction things that she was creating was going to help me. I believed that everyone that came into my experience was coming to be of service. A lot of people who've never had psychic readings, by the way, and I know this because I was one of these people, who would be like, oh, they're just so general, and like that would, whatever. And I just, and we just choose to be skeptic because that's actually what our culture kind of teaches. Like, oh no, we should only believe what we see, hear, and, can smell, taste, touch, science, etc., etc. But can't see fucking Wi-Fi, can't see radio waves, can't see microwaves. And you don't even know what you don't know. You don't even know what you don't know. And so I've always had this, like, humility within my aura. Like my energy is very like curious, and I'm always like open to learning new information, you know, with a grain of salt, and, you know, taking things as they resonate. But choosing to believe in where I was being led was such a huge, I feel like it made it easier on my spiritual team. You know, like you ever hear that little story analogy, whatever, where it's like, oh, I prayed for help. The guy who's like in like dying in the ocean or whatever, and he prays for help, and so somebody like comes by in a boat, and they're like, hey man, you need help? He's like, no, I prayed, God's coming, you know, whatever. And then they send someone else, and he's like, no, I'm good, God's gonna send someone. And then eventually the guy dies, and he's up in heaven. He's like, bruh, what happened? I prayed, and the guy's like, bruh, I sent you this, and this, but you didn't, you needed it to look a certain way. And I feel like that's a big thing that can kind of like block us off from receiving help from spirit, because a lot of us, even myself included, we want it to look a certain way. So it's like, okay, you guys, I need you guys to help me with this work thing or whatever. And what I think that looks like is, I think it looks like sending me more money, right? But what ends up happening is everybody in my orbit is like, hey, don't worry about it, just get to us when you can, or something like that, right? And so I ended up getting the help that I needed. It just looked differently than how I needed it to look, or how I expected it to look. Expectations, oh my gosh. And this is not just with respect to spiritual stuff, just with respect to anything. Like having an expectation of what an outcome should or shouldn't look like can really like pigeonhole your ability to experience success, or to experience healing, or to experience like, I don't know, just allowing that information to integrate into, you know, it to be of service to you in the way that is to be of service to you. So what else? So for me, it's been a lot of just like asking, like, okay, so what's the deal? Why did I make me this way? Okay, well, why the fuck did I choose these parents? Okay, so then pre-birth planning brought into the, you know, came into the picture. And then when I got out of a relationship where there was like a bunch of other women involved, I noticed, I was like, I observed, I was like, why do I keep getting dudes with a bunch of bitches, like side bitches, like what the fuck, right? So I was like, okay, so what do I need to heal within me that is going to change that pattern, change that pathology? My guides and angels send me a fucking inner child healing book, right? And they do that, and that was just like, okay, so sometimes they'll answer you by way of ideas, right? So like, it's like, so when I asked that, there, what the thought was, right? And your thoughts are often spirit. A lot of us think that our thoughts are us, but a lot of times, if you ever have something just pop in your head, like for example, I'm like, how do I do this inner child healing? And then the thought that comes to my mind immediately was like, just pick a book, bitch. You love studying. Just find a book, find a workbook, and just do the work, right? So I got on Amazon, found the Healing Your Inner Child book with the accompanying workbook, and I worked my ass through that. And even just listening to it, because I'm a psycho, I bought the paperback book, and I bought the audiobook, and I bought the workbook. I remember just listening to the first chapter. I was like, wow. I remember going through the first chapter, and it talks about like, okay, what's on your tool belt? Right? Like we move through life and we have different experiences, and boom, like now we have a socket wrench, right? And boom, now we have different, you know, bolts that fit onto the socket wrench or whatever, right? I'm not a fucking tool person, but you know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh my God, all my tools are trauma-based. All my shit is defensive. All my shit is like, oh my goodness. So then I had to like go through all these life experiences. And you know what's funny, you guys? I've been through a lot of shit. A lot of abuses, a lot of physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental, like all the things, right? The biggest wound in my childhood as I was going through this inner child healing was when I was writing. I was like, I don't know, maybe like 5. And I was drawing stars all over the kitchen counter. And my mom got pissed off at me in pencil. Okay, fucking graphite, guys. In pencil, I'm drawing stars and, you know, suns and shit like that. And she's like, what are you know, she yells at me. She wants me to clean it up. So I'm sitting there crying, and my stepdad is sitting on the thing, and I just wanted him to save me. Like, I just want to draw stars. Y'all, I cried over this incident that I had never cried over my whole entire life. For so long, because it was just this essence of me just wanting to be a fucking child and then someone coming and saying that's not okay, and then nobody standing up for me. And so then I realized, through by way of working through this inner child healing book, that I'd adopted that. I'd adopted that whole methodology. I became my mother, who disregarded me and told me I couldn't do things, and I became my father, who wouldn't stand up for me, all at the same fucking time. So now I'm going through life, and I'm realizing, like, oh my God, I'm not allowing myself. Okay, so now what's the next question? What do I really want to do? What do I really want? What dreams are true dreams that I want? And what things are things that just I came up with after somebody told me my big dreams weren't realistic, or weren't possible, or like, what is really me? And man, once you start delving into that, that's a whole nother thing, man, because then you start realizing, like, before you're even born, you're just being fed program, right? So like, if we use a computer analogy, because I love a computer analogy, what do we have to do? You have your operating system, right? And then you have to download, whatever other programs you want the system to run. So every person that you encounter, every interaction that you have, you learn something, right? You go to school, you interact with your parents, you're learning something. Okay. This just happened. So this plus this equals that, right? Not realizing that this plus this equals whatever the fuck you decide to make it mean. But I didn't have that frame of reference. So now I'm like having to go through my life and kind of like unpack. So this is the visual that Spirit had given me. They showed me in a room or whatever, right? And I'm just in this office room, and there's these old school filing cabinets all around me, and there's files everywhere, right? All these files are my life experiences. Every single little experience, exchange I've had with anyone is in one of these files. Okay, so I'm sitting here and I just have all these files out, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the file and I'm like, all right, this was the experience. This is what we took away with it. Now, does that rule still apply? Is this true every time A plus B happens? Or are there infinite possibilities that can come from this, right? Like, what beliefs that I have that are in this room full of experiences and conclusions that I've drawn? What of these are causing me pain? What are these are keeping me in a box? What of these are stunting my growth? What of these are keeping me from my being most happiest? Because I got to tell you, before I was before I was 30, because I had the goal to purchase a home by the time I was 30. I wanted to work for the government, and I was going to retire with the government and pension and blah fucking blah, and living in, Riverside, whatever. That's not what the fuck I wanted at all. I don't ever want to retire. I want to build businesses. I want to staff them, and I want to move on to something else. I get bored after 2 years in any job. So it's not, so for me to even, like, now that I think about that, like, I was going to do what for fucking, how old am I? So I'm 40 now, another 25. So we'll say 35 years. I'm supposed to do the same fucking thing over and over again. That sounds like death to me. That sounds like the opposite of living to me. Now that I've like moved into, being like my authentic self and understanding how I work and why I work that way, like the life that I was building for myself in my 20s and 30s is not the fucking life that I want. I've always wanted to live in the mountains. I love the snow. I love the work of living in the mountains. Like, I love shoveling fucking snow and knocking down icicles and like having to trek through the fucking snow so your dog can go. Like, and me and my dog have so much fun in the snow. That was not even on the fucking radar of my life until I got divorced in 2018. I was not even on my fucking radar. So I had to really kind of go through and like, okay, well, what brings me joy, right? So then I went into this whole phase where like, I was like, okay, I'm by myself, I'm single, right? I wake up, I'm in this house, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I have time freedom because I'm self-employed, I own my own businesses. What the fuck do I want to do? So usually the answer would be like, go outside. Every morning I would walk my dog. I still do this pretty much every morning. I go for a walk with my dog, a hike, right? Usually somewhere where there's not a lot of people, because I'm not a big people fan. Just trying to get comfortable here. I always start my podcast sitting on my legs, and they start going numb, and I get super uncomfortable. Um, and what brings me joy about being outside is literally just like seeing flowers, seeing the way the snow sparkles in the sun, seeing the way water moves, seeing little turtles underneath the water pop their heads up, um, dragonflies. Like even if I'm on like on a long road trip, I'll find myself looking at all the flora and fauna around where I'm driving, and I'll make bouquets in my head. Like I can be so fucking happy, you guys. Completely just living in La La Land in my head. Like the visual from The Simpsons where like Homer's like on a merry-go-round, there are just like donuts playing with him or something. Like that is me. Like that is like what brings me fucking happiness, just being able to be outside and to do what I want. Then the other things would come up and be like, all right, well, what do I feel like doing, right? Oh, I want to make myself an amazing. I would cook myself the best fucking meals during this period. I can't even tell you. The fucking filet mignon. Oh my goodness. Like the steaks and just, I would make myself good ass food. So I'm like at home by myself, whining and dining myself, taking myself out on adventures, like just doing all these little things that are just bringing me just like the ultimate joy, just ultimate fucking happiness. And I end up finding out like later on during past life readings that my love for just going places and looking around comes from, you know, my past life as an alien pilot where I would just drive around the galaxy and look at supernovas and shit, you know, and just be so happy to just sightsee, just see the beauty of just the world. And I feel like that about this world too. When I've traveled and when I go different places, I'm like, oh my God, I have this weird feeling of just like that this planet was built for me, not like, oh, I'm just here. You know, people are like, oh, we're just here and then we die and blah. No, 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 no. This is not my perspective. My perspective is this whole place is my playground. This whole place is for me to just expand and grow and play and have fun. And like, so I spent this, oh man, it was a cool minute. I would probably say probably about 4 to 6 months of this really intense, just being led by my guides and angels, literally just by asking questions and then whatever popped into my experience, whatever videos on YouTube, whatever books. I actually have a fucking blog post on my blog that lists like all the books that I read throughout this period. Some of them were Dolores Cannon books, Flying High with Spirit by Mikey Morgan and Roberta Grimes, The Law of Divine Compensation, reincarnation books, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, The Convoluted Universe, The Akashic Records, Many Lives, Many Masters, A True Story of a Prominent Psychiatrist, His Young Patient, and The Past Life Therapy That Changed Both Their Lives. So I'm like reading all this stuff. So I started reading about psychic protections because I started realizing that like I didn't hate people as much as I thought I hated people. I realized that like I have the ability to pick up on how everybody feels and what everybody is thinking. And so my need to be in a space where there's a lot of nature and it's like the vibration of the earth is stronger than the vibration of people. That's really important to me. That's why I live in the mountains. But I was learning all these things about myself. And so it became a lot easier to be me. And it gave me an appreciation of myself that I was like, wow. Like, so I often tell people that they're perfect. And I truly believe that we are all perfect. And I know that like, from the human perspective, we believe perfection is something that has no flaws. But by my definition, flaws are perfection because we come here to not be perfect. We can be perfect at home. You know, we come here to get messy and we come here to play and we come here to rediscover and we come here to help each other and we come here to grow and expand, which is way, 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 way better or resonates with me more than the traditional because I wasn't raised religious, but I did go to Christian churches when I was growing up. And I remember one of my cousins was telling me, she's like, you know that heaven is basically just worshiping God forever, right? And so the visual I got from that was like everybody like standing outside these gold mansions, which I think is gaudy and awful. I've never liked big houses ever. I remember reading that like gold, like who gives a fuck about gold? Like that's what we're doing this for? Like shit that comes out of the earth? Like seriously? And I remember just having this visual of everyone like in their front yards of their golden mansions, just like bowing, like heads up and down. We're just like bowing to God while what? Like he just sits there in the clouds looking all fluffy and shit. That did not make any sense to me at all. That was not like something that would make me want to behave like, oh, I want to be good so I can go bow for eternity. What the fuck? How is that worse than getting burned? I don't know. Anyway, so learning and coming into the awareness that like, no, that is not what heaven is like. Heaven is work, right? Heaven is where we recongregate, we create things instantly, you know, we create these worlds, we get to incarnate in parts of us into different dimensions and have different experiences. And, you know, we're able to just like grow and expand and just have this whole expanding experience, which resonates with me way more. Because I've always said that, like, if I ever, you know, how people are like, oh, what would you do if you won the lottery? I was always like, I would just move to different countries, live there for 6 months to a year, enroll in school, and just like learn and study things, you know, study things from different perspectives, like, you know, because I've always been interested in different cultures, different languages. I've always wanted to like learn to play every instrument, and I've always wanted to learn every type of dance, and I've wanted to learn every language. Now, if from when I was, you know, just coming from a human perspective before the spiritual awakening, I'm like, damn, that's a tall ass order. Like, do I actually like legitimately have time, you know, to learn every language? But now that I've had my past life readings, I know that I've had past lives in Sweden and Switzerland and France and Brazil and Colombia and New York and Egypt, and I already speak on a soul level. I'm pretty sure my soul probably already does that. So a lot of things that I learned that, you know, I crave in this life are because on a higher level I'm reaching those goals. I'm expanding into those things, you know, and it's just like part of it. So there's no pressure on me to have to, you know, learn everything in one particular life, because we're eternal beings. There's, you know, like Abraham Hicks said, you can't get it wrong, and you never get it done, because each life we incarnate into, we want more, and, you know, we kind of facilitate that more as we move through our, you know, various incarnations. So I feel like with the uncovering of like the trauma from, you know, growing up, the understanding of self, and understanding that I'm not a product of my environment. I created my environment for me to come in to learn and expand into. My perspective on the world and on everybody in it is significantly different now. So before, if I would, you know, someone would come into my experience and they'd be difficult, right? Let's say, should I go with that? How can I give an example of this? Manipulating energy. So if someone shows up into my experience and they're pressing me about something, right? Like, oh, why don't you watch the news? That's a good one. Why don't you watch the news? You should watch the news. Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Don't you want to know like what's going on in the world? Da, 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 da. So instead of looking at them and saying, oh, here's a person who doesn't agree with my way of being, and determining whether or not I decide whether or not their perspective is right and wrong, whether or not I'm going to step into defending my perspective, I look at them and I think to myself, oh, this is an opportunity for me to show up as my authentic self. Well, the reason why I don't watch the news is because all the information that it provides is old news. It's stuff that's already it's been done. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. It's over, you know? Or, and yeah, and what just immediately popped in my head is like, well, what about weather? The weather. Well, I live in Big Bear, and I'm gonna tell you right now that weather reports change every 15 minutes. I remember like in October, we thought we were going to get snow, and I was so excited. I had like adjusted all my plans for this fucking snow that it was forecast, right? I'm on my phone. I'm like, okay, it's 8 o'clock. It says the snow's going to fall. I'm looking out my window. No snow. Look at my app. Oh, the app pushed the snow back to 9 o'clock now. Now the snow's coming at 9. Okay. All right, I'm excited when it's going to be coming at 9. All right, is it 9? There's no snow. Let's check my app. Oh, now the snow's been pushed back to 10 o'clock. So fuck the weather. I'm just going to sit here and be in my own energy. And when the snow falls, I'm going to go outside and play. We're just going to leave it at that, right? And that's just my way of being. Because if I engage in whatever, you know, staring at the thing, that little example shows how many times I was disappointed. because something outside of myself told me to expect something outside of myself to find joy. Where if I would have just instead decided, fuck it, I'm gonna take Monty on, my dog's name is Monty. I'm gonna take Monty on a long ass walk. And then me and Monty go for a walk, and then it starts snowing, and now I'm in the thick of the thing that brings me the most fucking joy, and it's a surprise, and it's beautiful, and there's no disappointment because it's exactly what I want. And now I'm living in a state of just being moved by magic, right? Rather than having an expectation and it falling short, or feeling like I can't thrive because something is going on somewhere else. And because I'm so deeply like intuitive and empathic, like if I watch the news and see people get hurt, you know, shootings and all that stuff, everybody's my child, you guys. That's how bad it hurts me to watch complete strangers go through things. So why am I going to do that? Right? Because that's their experience. That's their free will. They chose to incarnate into that. They want to learn and grow and expand from these things. So why am I going to spend my finite amount of time investing my energy into someone else's experience and projecting what I think is good or bad or right or wrong or whatever, having no ability to chime in with that person directly and find out, well, hey, what'd you learn from this? Or hey, is something good coming from this? Or hey, you're going to start a foundation that's going to help people like for fucking eons based on this bad experience? Like, where's this going to go? You never know. So like, I don't know. Anyway, so everyone that comes into my life now, I feel like it's an opportunity. And you know what's interesting? I'm at a point now where when people come into my life, I'm like, oh, how can I be of service for you? You know, how can you be of service to me? Like, and not in a shitty, like a, you know, what are you going to do for me type of like, you know, type of vibe. It's not like that. It's like, what are we going to learn from each other? Because I find that now when I come into people's experiences, there's usually something about me that is like, something like, okay, specifically, like I'll say men, it's 44 minutes. I have found that like when I come into the experience of men, most of the time they've completely given up on love, or they've given up on some part of the magic of connecting with another person because they had bad experiences. And then I show up and I'm just this like free, happy, free loving butterfly. And they're like, holy shit. I can't tell you how many times I've hung out with someone. They're like, I needed this. Like I really needed to be around, you know, somebody with your energy, just to see that like not all women are the same, or not all experiences are the same, or whatever. It's just like I find that like a lot of times in life, like that I can be a beacon by being true to myself, which is a beautiful thing. And when I come into people who are aligned with their authentic selves, it's the same thing. Like it's like, oh my goodness, this person is just shining and just being who they are unapologetically, and it feels like just excitement and fun and love. And there's none of the stuff that's really popular, I feel like, in our society. You know, no hating, no jealousy, no I don't know, man. Just there's a purity of just being within the experience rather than being a spectator and a commentator on other people's lives, because that's just boring. So yeah, I get people ask me, oh, do you watch, you know, football? For what? I'm going to watch somebody else have fun. I'm going to watch somebody else living their dream. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to go do my own shit. Like, I barely watch TV. Like, since my spiritual awakening, that's one thing that I will say. I have become very, very particular with what energies I allow into my orbit, and my life has been so much more beautiful and so much more peaceful and just so much more aligned now that I honor myself, you know? I find the biggest thing that I have learned when using my spirituality to facilitate healing is that everything comes with divine timing and divine purpose. And like just trusting that and allowing that to just kind of flow has made it easier. It's like healing is not hard. I remember before my spiritual awakening, I knew that there were things within me that I needed to heal, you know, but it was like, how? Like, okay, I have all these negative things, this little, you know, list of traumas from childhood or whatever. And it's like, but I'm not crying over it. Who gives a fuck? Right? I remember just being like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, okay, it happened. I get it. It wasn't my fault. I'm over it. Right? But when I ended up finding was that, like, as I went through my inner child healing, which was given to me at the perfect fucking time in the perfect fucking way, is that like I had to go back into different experiences and allow myself, for example, the writing on the writing the stars, drawing the stars on the counter, to heal from that. I had to go back and be that little girl and just allow her to be heartbroken. Just allow her to be heartbroken. She didn't get to draw the fucking stars, and that her mom was being a dick, and her dad didn't stand up for her, right? And then I get to say to her, the stars were beautiful, girl. Oh my gosh, draw those stars all over my house. Like, you know, it's funny too. I said this and I just got this visual. One of my kids had drawn, you know, this big fucking thing on the wall, right? Any regular parent would be mortified, fucking mad. Like, what the fuck? But I was so proud of like my kids drawing all over the walls. But I had to go back in and kind of reparent her, like, listen, stars are amazing, okay? And it's fine that they're on the fucking counter, because like, what's this? Why do we have this desire to make everything so perfect? Like, I don't understand that either. Like, you remember, I don't know, it depends on what era you grew up in, but you know how like we were taught, and I remember I did this with my oldest two kids. It was like, your kids are a reflection of you, and if they're not dressed like this, and if their hair doesn't look like this, then you're a bad parent. Fuck you, bruh. I'm gonna allow my kids to be who they are. So I remember my mom would give me shit. I remember she told her therapist one time, probably shouldn't be sharing this, but whatever, that she wanted to call CPS on me because I wasn't doing my daughter's hair. Can I tell you that my daughter would run around, and she has hair like mine, except it was like even more, you know, froey. And she would run through the neighborhood and have her little curls all over the place. And she just felt so beautiful, and people would compliment her all the time. But my mother thinks it's abuse, right? So like, it's really like having to go through all these experiences, allow myself to feel the feelings and then release them, right? Like, not just feeling them, bottling them up, or not feeling them and just pushing them somewhere where I can't see them because they're still there, right? And just allow myself to be free, and then like do that in the present life. So then it's like, okay, now let's move that like into like the sense of like a relationship, right? So acknowledging your feelings. Another thing I learned through this, oh man, we're running out of time, was like acknowledging my emotions, because I learned that I taught myself, because my parents taught me, to completely just disregard my emotions, right? So now I had to be like, okay, or I would logic my way out of them, like, oh, I'm dating this guy and he likes this other girl, and that hurts my heart, but I'm not gonna say anything because she's really pretty and I get it, like, and we're not actually exclusive. So I mean, I really have no reason to feel bad. And no, bitch, stop right there. Now I've learned that I have to stop at how I feel. So bam, oh, he's into some other girls, that doesn't feel good, this isn't for me. Bam, that's it. I don't need to talk myself into allowing somebody to feel how they feel. That's your experience. She is beautiful. I'm going to let you handle that. That's your thing. Do your thing. I'm going to respect myself, and I'm going to go over here. Right? And man, that's fucking hard. And it's crazy because like, as you learn to do that, you realize how much stuff you'd sweep under the fucking table, like going to the grocery store. I hate the fucking I hate shopping, period. God did not make me a full woman because I hate shopping. That's a joke, by the way. I'm not trying to be anti-feminist or anything. I don't like it. I don't like going to the store. I don't like sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna wear. I hate clothes, period. You know, so it's like, I don't like that. So instead of beating myself up about it and being like, oh, you should enjoy it, and other people like it, maybe if you just go with this person, it'll be fun. No, fuck you. I will find one pair of pants that I like, and I'm gonna order it in all the colors. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm gonna find this and I'm just gonna order that. Like, I'm the laziest fucking style person ever. Like, all my cute shit, like this dress, for example, this dress that I'm wearing because it's like laundry day and I don't have, you know, clean pants, is because my daughter, or was this from, yeah, my daughter's 18th birthday. She wanted us to be dressed up in like Kim Kardashians and be all fancy and go to Beverly Hills. And I love you, Jasmine, you know? And so I have like, we went shopping and I had her pick stuff out so that I can look how she wanted me to look, because this is not my style. You know what I'm saying? So like, just being honest with yourself and honoring yourself. Like, look, all right, there's nothing wrong with not liking shopping. I don't have to explain that. It doesn't diminish my womanliness. Like, I had to stop with all the like rules and all the, you know, like self-abuse. And we do this in such like tiny ways that about the silliest shit, and we didn't even realize we're totally disregarding ourselves. So after I did all this work, I ended up in a relationship, and I was having a conversation with the guy that I was with, and something bothered him, but he was just like, whatever. I find that so prominent with people, period, nowadays. We'll be bothered by stuff and we'll just bury that shit. No, it's fine, whatever. Oh, or we'll think to ourselves, ooh, if I speak up on this, then I'm gonna lose this person. Oh my god, now I'm in a state where I'm like, tell me what you need, because if we're in a relationship and something that I'm doing is bothering you, I'm going to fucking look out for you. I'm going to look out for you like I would look out for me. The way I look out for myself when something doesn't feel right, and I immediately honor myself like, okay, no, we're not doing this. This is not. And I don't need to come up with a reason. It doesn't fucking matter, because I know that my emotions are my soul's way of guiding me to what I really truly want. So if I keep staying in situations that don't feel good because I'm logicking my way through it and talking myself out of feeling certain ways, then I'm actually diverting myself away from the life of my dreams. No one is moving you away from anything. How can I say this? You are the one that's in your own way. You are the one. There's nobody else. People are like, oh, these haters and those people are trying to stop me and they slow me down. No. It's you and your perspective. It's you and the way you treat yourself. It's you and the way you honor yourself, listen to your internal guidance or not. That's going to get you to where you want to be, or not. I just feel like there's all these little ways that we don't even realize where we're getting in our own way and where we're abandoning. And I feel like that by using my connection to source and my connection to my guides and angels to help me heal and get through certain things, it brought me exactly what I needed right when I needed it, instead of having to go to a therapist. And I'm not discounting therapy, y'all. If you feel called to go to a therapist, your guides and angels could be leading you to a therapist, and you can find someone who's perfectly aligned for you, who's going to get you exactly where you need to go. And when you use spirituality to get you through certain things, like, again, just open your mind up to the fact that it could look significantly different than what you are anticipating, and just trust the process, because your journey is not going to look like mine. You might have different questions. You might not start at like, why the fuck did I make me this way? You might start at, why am I scared to death of heights or something? I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I feel like no matter what religion you are, if you're, considered religious or spiritual, ask and you shall receive. And I feel like that is pretty much how I used my spirituality to facilitate healing. I just ask, like, okay, what do I need to work on next? Oh my goodness. I remember one time I asked my guides and angels, I was like, and my higher self, I was like, okay, what do I need to clear and heal in order for me to attract an aligned partner? And oh my God, it came through dreams. It came through interacting with someone. I had been interacting with somebody for like the past year. And from the outside perspective, and by outside, I'm going to say from my egoic perspective, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? But from my higher self perspective, it's like, oh, it's like this person is exposing a bunch of kinks in my chain and things that I need to work on, which is I'm so grateful. I don't even care where this connection goes. I'm enjoying being in it, because I'm enjoying the me that is being exposed to it, and the me that I'm learning about, and the areas of things that are still unhealed. Like, I did a lot of inner child healing, but this person helped me delve into wounds that I had around being rejected for being poor, or for not dressing the way everyone else dressed, or whatever. Like, just like, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh my God, I'm crying over this shit. Like, he has no idea. But because I'm self-aware, and because I'm constantly like looking at myself like, ooh, what's going on in there? Ooh, what do we need to heal? Ooh, how can we like feel our way through this? Ooh, let's revisit that. Like, dang, and you are worthy. And then like babying yourself and speaking kind things to yourself to get you through. You are worthy of love and respect, and you're worthy of all those things, whether you have nice clothes or fucking not. Like, who the fuck cares? Because we don't all care about fashion. But anyway, all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up because it's been about an hour. If you have any questions, please, please, please email me. You can contact me through TikTok, my website, intuitivelytrina.com. And let me know. I would love to connect. I do want to add that I also have a podcast hotline where you can call in and share stories or ask me questions about anything, healing, spirituality, anything. The number to the podcast hotline is 909-375-0880. And thank you guys so much for joining me and listening. And I know, like, you know, my Mercury's in Sagittarius, and it's so hard for your girl to like keep her eye on the ball when I'm communicating, because like there's so much information within me that I'm trying to use language to articulate, and language is so fucking limiting. But we're doing the best that we can. So I appreciate you guys for hanging around and listening, and we will see you in the next one.